Hello, welcome to Bible Study Time and welcome to my Quiet Time Bible Study. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, and I want to especially welcome my new subscribers and say thank you to my old subscribers and those of you who've been watching for sharing the videos. This is the time where I invite you to come and join me in the comfort of my prayer room, where we discuss different topics to do with the Most High Creator God of the universe, the one who the Holy Bible speaks about, the God of all gods, the God of all spirits. And my Hebrew name is Ahava, and Ahava is one of the many ways you can say the word love in Hebrew. And I really do like that name. It has such a pretty sound to it, in my opinion. So this week we are going to be continuing reading through the book of Jubilees, this book right here, with our read-along Bible study series. And for those of you who may be new, the book of Jubilees is what would be considered an extra canonical book. It's not in the 66 book canon, and it wasn't in the 1611 King James version of the Bible, which had 88 books in it. But it was, as we learned last week, in the Bible in the first century of after Christendom. So for some reason it was taken out, and we will be addressing some of those reasons as we go through this series. Last week we read through chapters 5 and 6, which has a lot of information in it and a lot to unpack, which I will be sort of summarizing at the very end of this series once we get through the book. But I just wanted to sort of highlight one component that I can't walk away from that we read about last week in chapter number 6, particularly when it comes to the calendar. And for those of you who may have this book, I am on page 29, okay? And what we read last week on page 29, we read in this book of Jubilees that the Lord commanded the Israelites to make sure that they don't forget the observance of the holy days, and they don't forget what the true calendar means. Verse number 32 says, and command thou the children of Israel, let me repeat that, and command thou the children of Israel that they observe the years according to this reckoning, 364 days, and these will constitute a complete year. So last week we read that according to the book of Jubilees, the true calendar has 364 days. And then there's like a warning in verse 33 that we read last week. It said the reason that the Most High, through this angel of the presence, is telling this to Moses while he's on Mount Sinai during those 40 days is so that they will not leave out any day nor disturb any feasts. We also read last week, very, very fascinating, the fact that it's almost like a foretelling of what's going to happen, you know, as the years progress and society increases. But it says in verse number 34, part B, and all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the path of the years, and will forget the new moons and seasons and Sabbaths, and they will go wrong as to all the order of the years. Now, we do know right now in today's society that we do not follow this 364-day calendar, but this is almost like a prophecy. So if it's true, it makes me wonder what it's saying, because according to this prophecy, and there are some other prophecies in the 66 book canon, closer to the end times, and as the years progress, the true Israelites are going to forget the feast days, be celebrating on the wrong days. So it does make me wonder, what's going on in today's society as far as, those true quote unquote Israelites are following, because this is a prophecy that says closer to the end times, the children of Israel will forget the days and be sort of celebrating on the wrong days. And based on what we read last week, basically following idolatry, not even knowing that they are, because they have sort of forgotten the ways of their forefathers. So that's definitely something we will unpack when we summarize this book. But for today, we're going to continue reading with chapter 7. And as I mentioned, there's so much meat that we read last week, but let's just read through and then we'll unpack the meat later on. So let's begin. For those of you who have this book, chapter 7 begins on page number 30, and this is the book of Jubilees, translated by R.H. Charles, beginning in verse number 1. And it says, And in the 7th week, in the first year thereof, in this Jubilee, Noah planted vines on the mountain on which the ark had rested, named Lubar, one of the Ararat mountains, and they produced fruit in the 4th year. And he guarded their fruit and gathered it in this year in the 7th month. And he made wine therein and put it into a vessel and kept it until the 5th year, until the 1st day on the new moon of the 1st month. And he celebrated with joy the day of this feast. And he made a burnt sacrifice unto the Lord, 1 young ox and 1 ram, and 7 sheep, each a year old, and a kid of the goats, that he might make atonement thereby for himself and his sons. And he prepared the kid first, and placed some of its blood on the flesh that was on the altar which he had made, and all the fat he laid on the altar where he made burnt sacrifice, and the ox and the ram and the sheep, and he laid all their flesh upon the altar, and he placed all their offerings mingled with oil upon it, and afterwards he sprinkled wine on the fire which he had previously made on the altar, and he placed incense on the altar, and caused a sweet savor to ascend acceptable before the Lord his God. And he rejoiced and drank of his wine, he and his children, with joy. And it was evening, and he went into his tent, and being drunken, he lay down and slept, and was uncovered in his tent as he slept. And Ham saw Noah his father naked, and went forth and told his 2 brethren without. And Shem took his garment and arose, he and Japheth, and they placed the garment on their shoulders and went backward and covered the shame of their father, and their faces were backward. And Noah awoke from his sleep and knew all that his younger son had done unto him. And he cursed his son and said, Cursed be Canaan, an enslaved servant shall he be unto his brethren. And he blessed Shem and said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and God shall dwell in the dwelling of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Ham knew that his father had cursed his younger son, and he was displeased that he had cursed his son, and he parted from his father, he and his sons with him. Cush and Mizrahim, and Put and Canaan. And he built for himself a city, and called its name after the name of his wife, Ne'atlema Uk. And Japheth saw it, and became envious of his brother, and he too built him for himself a city, and he called its name after the name of his wife, Adattaneses. And Shem dwelt with his father Noah, and he built a city close to his father on the mountain, and he too called its name after the name of his wife, Sedakubab. And behold, these 3 cities are near Mount Lubar, Sedakubab fronting in the mountain on its east, and Nilutmukuk on the south, excuse my pronunciation, Adatanis toward the west. And these are the sons of Shem, Elam and Ashur and Arphshad. This son was born 2 years after the flood, but Lud and Aram, the sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog, and Madai and Javan, Tubal and Meshech and Tiras. These are the sons of Noah. And in the 28th Jubilee, Noah began to enjoin upon his sons, the ordinances and commandments and all the judgments that he knew. And he exhorted his sons to observe righteousness and to cover the shame of their flesh and to bless their Creator and honor father and mother and love their neighbor and guard their souls from fornication and uncleanness and all iniquity. For owing to these 3 things came the flood upon the earth, namely owing to the fornication, wherein the watchers against the law of their ordinances went a-whoring after the daughters of men, and took themselves wives of all which they chose, and they made the beginning of uncleanness. And they begat sons, the Nephidim, and they were all unlike, and they devoured one another. And the giants slew the Nephil, and the Nephil slew Eljo, and Eljo mankind, and one man another. And everyone sold himself to work iniquity and to shed much blood, and the earth was filled with iniquity. And after this they sinned against the beasts and birds, and all that moves and walks on the earth. And much blood was shed on the earth, and every imagination and desire of men imagined vanity and evil continually. And the Lord destroyed everything from off the face of the earth because of the wickedness of their deeds, and because of the blood of which they had shed in the midst of the earth. He destroyed everything, and we were left, I and you, my sons, and everything that entered with us into the ark. And behold, I see your works before me, that ye do not walk in righteousness. For in the path of destruction ye have begun to walk, and ye are parting one from another, and are envious one of another. And so it comes that ye are not in harmony with my sons, each with his brother. For I see and behold, the demons have begun their seductions against you and against your children. And now I fear on your behalf that after my death ye will shed the blood of men upon the earth, and that ye too will be destroyed from the face of the earth. For whoso sheddeth man's blood, and whoso eateth the blood of any flesh, shall all be destroyed from the earth. And there shall not be left any man that eateth blood, or that sheddeth the blood of man on the earth. Nor shall there be left to him any seed or descendants living under heaven. For into Sheol shall they go, and into the place of condemnation shall they descend, and into the darkness of the deep shall they all be removed by a violent death. There shall be no blood seen upon you of all the blood there shall be all the days in which ye have killed any beast or cattle or whatever flies upon the earth, and work ye a good work to your souls by covering that which has been shed on the face of the earth. And ye shall not be like him who eats with blood, but guard yourselves, that none may eat blood before you. Cover the blood. For thus have I been commanded to testify to you and your children together with all flesh, and suffer not the soul to be eaten with the flesh, that your blood, which is your life, may not be required at the hand of any flesh that sheds it on the earth. For the earth will not be clean from the blood which has been shed upon it, for only through the blood of him that shed it will the earth be purified throughout all its generations. And now, my children, hearken, work judgment and righteousness, that ye may be planted in righteousness over the face of the whole earth, and your glory lifted up before my God, who saved me from the waters of the flood. And behold, ye will go and build for yourselves cities, and plant in them all the plants that are upon the earth, and moreover all fruit-bearing trees. For 3 years the fruit of everything that is eaten will not be gathered, and in the 4th year its fruit will be accounted holy, and they will offer the first fruits acceptable before the Most High God, who created heaven and earth and all things. Let them offer in abundance the first of the wine and oil as first fruits on the altar of the Lord, who receives it. And what is left, let the servants of the house of the Lord eat before the altar which receives it. And in the 5th year make ye the release, so that ye release it in righteousness and uprightness, and ye shall be righteous, and all that you plant shall prosper. For thus did Enoch, the father of your father, command Methuselah his son, and Methuselah his son Lamech, and Lamech commanded me all the things which his fathers commanded him. And I also will give you commandment, my sons, as Enoch commanded his son in the first Jubilees. While still living, the 7th in his generation, he commanded and testified to his son and to his son's son until the day of his death. And that brings me to the end of chapter number 7. And before I end this video, I'm going to continue reading through to the end of chapter number 8, beginning in verse 1. In the 29th Jubilee, in the first week, in the beginning thereof, Apshat took to himself a wife, and her name was Rashujah, the daughter of Susan, the daughter of Elam, and she bare him a son in the 3rd year in this week, and he called his name Canaan. And the son grew, and his father taught him writing, and he went to seek for himself a place where he might seize for himself a city, and he found a writing which former generations had carved on the rock, and he read what was thereon, and he transcribed it and sinned owing to it, for it contained the teaching of the watchers in accordance with which they used to observe the omens of the sun and moon and stars in all the signs of heaven. And he wrote it down and said nothing regarding it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, lest he should be angry with him on account of it. And in the 13th Jubilee, in the 2nd week, in the 1st year thereof, he took to himself a wife, and her name was Milcah, the daughter of Madai, the son of Japheth. And in the 4th year he begat a son, and called his name Shelah, for he said, truly, I have been sent. And in the 4th year he was born, and Shelah grew up and took to himself a wife, and her name was Muach, the daughter of Chesed, his father's brother, in the 113th Jubilee, in the 5th week, in the 1st year thereof. And she bare him a son in the 5th year thereof, and he called his name Eber. And he took unto himself a wife, and her name was Azurad, the daughter of Nebrod, in the 32nd Jubilee, in the 7th week, in the 3rd year thereof. And in the 6th year thereof she bare him son, and he called his name Peleg. For in the days when he was born, the children of Noah began to divide the earth amongst themselves. For this reason he called his name Peleg, and they divided it secretly amongst themselves and told it to Noah. And it came to pass in the beginning of the 33rd Jubilee that they divided the earth into 3 parts, for Shem and Ham and Japheth, according to the inheritance of each, in the first year, in the first week, when one of us who had been sent was with them. And he called his sons, and they drew nigh to him, they and their children, and he divided the earth into 3 lots, which his 3 sons were to take in possession. And they reached forth their hands, and took the writing out of the bosom of Noah their father. And there came forth on the writing at Shem's lot, the middle of the earth, which he should take as an inheritance for himself and for his sons, for the generations of eternity. From the middle of the mountain range of Rapha, from the mouth of the water, from the river Tina, and his portion goes towards the west, through the midst of this river, and it extends till it reaches the water of the abysses, out of which this river goes forth and pours its waters into the sea Miat, and this river flows into the great sea. And all this is towards the north, and all this that is towards the north is Japheth, and all that is towards the south belongs to Shem, and it extends till it reaches Carasso. This is in the bosom of the tongue, which looks towards the south. And his portion extends along the great sea, and it extends in a straight line till it reaches the west of the tongue, which looks towards the south. For this sea is named the tongue of the Egyptian sea. And it turns from here towards the south, towards the mouth of the great sea on the shore of the waters, and it extends to the west of Aphra, and it extends till it reaches the waters of the river Gihon, and to the south of the waters of Gihon to the banks of this river, and it extends towards the east till it reaches the Garden of Eden, to the south thereof, to the south, and from the east of the whole land of Eden and of the whole east, it turns to the east and proceeds till it reaches the east of the mountain named Rapha, and it descends to the bank of the mouth of the river Tina. This portion came forth by lot for Shem and his sons, that they should possess it forever unto his generations forevermore. And Noah rejoiced that this portion came forth for Shem and for his sons, and he remembered all that he had spoken with his mouth in prophecy, for he had said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and may the Lord dwell in the dwelling of Shem. And he knew that the Garden of Eden is the holy of holies, and the dwelling of the Lord, and Mount Sinai, the center of the desert, and Mount Zion, the center of the navel of the earth. These 3 were created as holy places facing each other. And he blessed the God of gods, who had put the word of the Lord into his mouth, and the Lord forevermore. And he knew that a blessed portion and a blessing had come to Shem and his sons unto the generations forever, the whole land of Eden, and the whole land of the Red Sea, and the whole land of the east, and India, and on the Red Sea, and the mountains thereof, and all the land of Bashan, and all the land of Lebanon, and the islands of Kaphtor, and the mountains of Senir, and Amana, and the mountains of Ashur in the north, and all the land of Elam, Ashur, and Babel, and Susan, and Meday, and all the mountains of Ararat, and all the region beyond the sea, which is beyond the mountains of Ashur. Towards the north, a blessed and spacious land, and all that is in it is very good. And for Ham came forth the second portion beyond the Gihon towards the south, to the right of the garden, and it extends toward the south, and it extends to all the mountains of fire, and it extends toward the west of the sea of Atel, and it extends toward the west till it reaches the sea of Muak, Kathat, sea into which everything which is not destroyed descends, and it goes forth towards the north to the limits of Gadir, and it goes forth to the coast of the waters of the sea, to the waters of the great sea, till it draws near to the river Gihon, and goes along the river Gihon, till it reaches the right of the Garden of Eden. And this is the land which came forth for Ham as the portion which he was to occupy, forever for himself and his sons, unto their generations forever. And for Japheth came forth the third portion, beyond the river Tina, to the north of the outflow of its waters, and it extends north, easterly to the whole region of Gog, and to all the country east thereof, and it extends northerly to the north, and it extends to the mountains of Kelt towards the north, and towards the sea of Muak, and it goes forth to the east of Gadir as far as the region of the waters of the sea, and it extends until it approaches the west of Farah, and it returns toward Apharag, and it extends easterly to the waters of the sea of Miat, and it extends to the region of the river Tina in a northeasterly direction until it approaches the boundary of its waters toward the mountain Rapha, and it turns round towards the north. This is the land which came forth for Japheth and his sons as the portion of his inheritance, which he should possess for himself and his sons for their generations forever, 5 great islands and a great land in the north. But it is cold, and the land of Ham is hot, and the land of Shem is neither hot nor cold, but it is of blended cold and heat. So that brings me to the end of chapter number 8 in the book of Jubilees. And of course, there's a lot of genealogy going on there, and my apologies for not being able to pronounce the names, but we will definitely delve into some of that genealogy and correlate it with the 66 book canon at the end of this study. I want to thank you so much for coming on this journey with me, and I'm so grateful to the Most High Creator God for all of the blessings that He's given to me, particularly this week. Just being guided into understanding some things that I've been trying to figure out on my journey. I'm super, super grateful and super, super thankful. And I want to just mention to someone today, I want to mention to you the fact that I know times are difficult, or maybe difficult right now, but in the midst of difficulty and in the midst of adversity, there is a peace that one can acquire if they have a personal relationship with the Most High Creator God of the universe and His Son, Yeshua HaMashiach. And how can you do that? How can you cultivate that? You can cultivate that just by reaching out to Him in prayer and also reading through His holy word, the Holy Hebrew Bible. Thank you for watching this video and reading along with me. And before I say goodbye, I want to remind you that the Most High Creator God of the universe loves His children.